Critical Incident Stress Management. We've got 34 people taking this 3-day course. And Mike, tell us about what this program is about, why this training is important, and give us a brief overview of those 34 students that are going to be graduating later this afternoon.
So really, this has been an ongoing thing that I wanted to take care of for the tribe and for the surrounding agencies here. For probably about 7 years, I've been looking for funding to host this class, and then when I found funding, I needed to find the right trainer for this class. So our first responders are taking care of the needs of the community, right? But who's taking care of the needs of the first responders? And that's what this class is geared towards. We want to make sure that, everybody calls 911 and expecting somebody to arrive to take care of their problem, but sometimes their problem becomes a problem for the people that are responding, right? Seeing things that are, we respond to some horrific events, and we all have families, and we go home to our families. We need some sort of some kind of mental help too. So this class is geared to give first responders the tools necessary to talk to each other after a bad call and make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and our first responders.
Sure. And all three of you, you're retired fire service in New York. You're with Navajo Nation, you're with the Yuma Proving Grounds. All three of you combined, I'm sure, have seen more than your fair share of critical incidents and people that are under duress. And talk about what you would learn from this class. What's the most important thing that you've picked up on?
I guess I'll go first. I think for me is understanding that there's a way for us to do this, and I don't need clinical staff. They're not needed right away, because I'm not trying to heal anybody right away. I'm trying to provide a space, a safe space for our responders to talk out their feelings, to talk out what they just witnessed, to talk out what they've been through, how they feel about it, and let that be a place for them to decompress before they take it home. Because the last thing we want them to do is to take it home and some of that spills over because you're just really charged up from what you were dealing with. So that's the big thing. My takeaway from all of that is that's what we're doing. And I don't need to have a high level of clinical staff and identifying, at least for me from Navajo, identifying that I don't need to have our traditional practitioners, our medicine people involved just yet. But I identify, at least through this initial CISM event, that I can say, you know what, Mike, I think you're dealing with a lot. I want to call a practitioner for you so that he can do a diagnosis and maybe identify a little bit more what you need. And that's kind of what all of this is and what I was able to see. My thoughts on CISM was a little bit different, kind of in line with what we've learned, but I think the big takeaway for me was understanding that really we're providing a safe place for our responders to decompress and talk.
Sure. And Barry, what were your thoughts on this?
I really liked how, Mike, you brought everybody together in different departments, different agencies. A lot of my training is more specific, just firefighters and first responders. So it's really cool to see all these different people come together and know that, if I have an issue, I can call you and down the road, somebody might not be comfortable talking to me. I can talk to Mike, or I can go down that roster, and I can use that roster if need be.
Let's give folks some data, some numbers behind this. Folks that do face a critical incident or a traumatic incident, the numbers are that 75% loss in productivity due to depression. Stress results in poor decision making, 3 times greater health problems, domestic violence, 5 times higher rates of alcoholism, and 10 times more likely to suffer from depression because of that impact, because of having that experience. So what do you want to see, both of you, and Mike, you're putting together our own CISM team here at Cocopah. What do you want to see moving forward with that team, and what do you want to see with your teams? Let's start with you, Mike.
Well, I've handpicked some really good individuals so that we can have the most robust team that I think that we could build. But a lot of those statistics that you just read are because the first responders are not taking care of themselves, right? So we want to make sure that they're eating right, they're exercising, they got a hobby, they're not just going home and thinking about the calls that they've been on. So really, it's teaching them to take care of themselves first before they can help somebody else. That's what I'm going to push the message to my team.
And what do both of you hope to see moving forward? Now that you've had this training, how does that apply to your experiences, and what do you want to do for your departments now?
More along the lines of what you were just saying, a more structured program. So take care of ourselves first, and then put together resources, and if need be, we can have develop a CISM team and then activate it if need be.
I agree with both. Understanding that there's a need to have a CISM team as a legitimate tool set to have available to what we do. And on my end, as I went through the training over the past couple of days, I stayed in touch with my police chief, my fire chief, my EMS lead, Department of Emergency Management, and identifying that these responders here all said the same thing. We need to make it happen because it's not happened. It's not been made available. It's not been developed. People have talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, but nobody understood enough about it to bring it and make it happen. So it's been a blessing knowing that Mike invited me to be a part of this. Now I get to take something tangible home and hopefully build off of that.
And the instructor, I popped in the other day, and he had what sounded like some very, very striking stories about what can happen and how this can affect people. How did that change your perspective, both of you, when you heard those stories?
For me, it's comforting to know that I'm not and I know I'm not the only one, but I'm not the only one going through these situations. So
I think for me, there was probably some hesitation initially as I started to hear what CISM was and how it worked. Coming from a military background as an airborne combat medic, I knew and I know and I understand that I've got my own baggage. I've got my own skeleton. I've got my own monkeys on my back, to use the language that our instructor used. How do I help others without triggering my monkeys to come back and then start messing with me? And then we're going to talk some more. We're going to stay in touch. We're going to identify what that tool set itself looks like again. But this is something that's bigger for Navajo Nation. Population 400,000, land mass 28,000 square miles, 18,000 miles of roads, only 3,000 are paved. So the understanding that, and we talked about it throughout the past couple of days, when you're responding out on Navajo, for me, a response time at best begins at 45 minutes. What are you dealing with at that response? What does that look like? The longer you're sitting there stressing, waiting for others to show up, the more impact you're going to have to your psyche. And the more the priority of identifying a CISM event to happen for those responders increases.
And for you, your career, your life, from 9/11 to today, how has your perspective changed because of this training and what you've brought to the table?
I just know that CISM is needed, and first responders have a hard job, and a lot of times you say you're going to leave it at the scene, but a lot of times, like, that monkey stays on your back, and you might think all is good, and then one day you just smell that smell or hear that sound, and you're back to that same event. So having a free space to talk about it, right? And I think a big benefit, not just now that I have this training and I have a team starting to build, but the collaboration now that we have this list of these 34 individuals that from around the state, Yuma County here, I can call on Barry, I can call on Dariel and say, hey, listen, I'm struggling, and then maybe they can help me, or maybe vice versa. They call me and say, hey, I had a bad day today, and I'm reaching out to you from the class, and I told everybody in the class we're gonna check in quarterly, and if Cocopah has a bad event, my CISM team is kind of dead in the water because we're all Cocopah here, and we can't deal with it. So I might need a team from somewhere else to come in and help debrief us, So I think what we did here is we collaborated with some first responders, and we did a really good thing for the citizens of the county and the citizens of the reservations that we serve, and of the state here,
Okay, and that's going to do it for us for now. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And if you like what you see here in terms of Cocopah news, events, and activities, go to cocopah.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the newsletter tab. It's free. We won't share your contact information with any third parties. And you can also find us on Facebook under Cocopah Now, and all on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and all major platforms. Thank you for joining us.